Well, a new month means a new monthly maker challenge with my maker friends. This month's challenge was make something that lights up. I'm going to show you how I made mine. Let's get started. The face of my sign is going to be made out of 1/2" MDF. This is really smooth and it paints well, and I just happen to have a scrap that's perfect for a curved arrow. I'm carefully measuring and laying out the arrow, figuring out the dimensions as I go. And for the outside curve, I just use a paint can. And after we've drawn it out, we're going to cut it out with a circular saw, and we'll use a jigsaw for the rounded portions. And then a little cleaning up over at the sanding station. We need to mark and lay out where we're going to drill the holes for our lights. I'm using my compass set to 5/8 of an inch, and I'm drawing a parallel line all the way around the arrow sign. Next, to save some time, I've just cut a spacer block, and I'm using it to lay out the distance between the holes. I've chucked a Forstner bit in the drill press that's slightly smaller than the light rings I'm going to use. I've set a depth stop so that I don't drill all the way through, and I'm making the pockets. Now with a drill bit that's slightly smaller than the diameter of the lights I'm using, I'm going to punch out the center. For my light trim rings, I'm just using a hollow aluminum deck baluster, and I'm cutting them to length on my bandsaw. Since it's aluminum, you can just use a regular wood blade. Moving over to the stationary sander, we're going to start deburring these. We're also going to chamfer both ends of the trim ring. And to deburr the inside of the trim rings, we're just going to use a conical shaped grinding stone in the drill press. It's time for a little assembly. First, we're going to spread some glue, and then we'll use some clamps to temporarily hold our wood in place. The wood that I'm using is actually some pre-painted 2x2 stair balusters that I had left over. I'm going to secure these through the MDF with brad nails. These are just acting as spacers so that we can add some depth to our sign. Now we're going to put a back on our sign. This doesn't have to be arrow shaped, it just has to take up the majority of the back. I'm not gluing this because I want to be able to take it off again. So after clamping it, pre-drilling, I'm going to screw it on with some short drywall screws. To make the sides of our sign, we're going to rip a piece of this 1/8" bendable plywood. We're going to only fasten it to the face of our sign. We don't want to fasten it to the back of our sign because we won't be able to take the back off. We're going to glue it, and we're going to use some staples because they have a little better holding power than a nail. As you can see, this bends really well around the outside radius. I'm just using some clamps to hold it as I go along and staple it. As I said, the inside radius is a little bit too tight for it to curve. I tried clamping and bending it a couple of times only to have it break. So I just did the straight pieces on the inside, and I'll show you in a minute how we took care of the inside radius. For the inside radius, I've just cut a bunch of thin strips, and I'm gluing and stacking them on top of each other to form the curve. After everything's glued up and dried, I'm coming back with some spackle to fill all the staple and nail holes, as well as smooth out some of the rough spots. I've chosen this bright red color for the paint. It took about 5 coats to get everything covered. Installing our trim rings for our lights is just a simple matter of tapping them into the hole with a hammer. Remember, we drilled these slightly smaller, and we put a chamfer on the end of the trim ring so that it wedges itself in there. For the lights, I busted out an old pack of Christmas tree lights. I'm just pushing these in the holes from the back of the sign. As you can see, this is a 100 light set and we only need 39. I probably could have cut and spliced it back together, but instead I just loosened one of the bulbs and half the set went out, and I crammed the rest in the back. They all fit, and I kind of like to think that they're helping hold the other ones in. Well, here we have the finished product. I think it turned out pretty good, and it definitely meets this month's criteria of something that lights up. I've been wanting to make one of these signs for a while, so this was a good excuse to do it. I'll probably end up hanging it in the tinkerer's shop, or I might use it as a prop for my burgeoning modeling career. Probably not. Thanks for watching.